Good morning, brothers and sisters.
Good morning.
It is another beautiful Sunday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for Faith Matters. I know for those of you who regularly attend and take part in our session that this might be a bit of a repeat, but I'm also mindful that there are folks out there who do join us for the first time each and every week. So what I will tell you is Faith Matters is... We're getting our tech squared away. It's no problem.
At the silencer.
Faith Matters is a gospel-based discussion format. I like to joke that the sermon is a monologue. We talk, you listen. But the class is a dialogue where we explore the gospel and we share with one another through the comment feature on the live stream what our thoughts are, what challenged us, what attracted us, what we found comforting, what we found frightening. All of those are possible in the gospel. We are in Matthew's gospel now, and this should be one that rings true and is somewhat familiar to you. Let me give you a reading from Matthew's gospel. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." So my friends, what did you hear? What struck you? What comforted you? What challenged you?
I don't know. I was struck by the blessings because when you're going through some of these things, you don't really feel like they're a blessing. At the time when you're when you're poor, do you really feel blessed that you're poor? Or, when you're mourning, do you feel like that's a blessing? So that struck me when I heard you read it this time.
Yeah.
The thing that's noteworthy, and I actually remember we've discussed this at a Faith Matters maybe 3 years ago, but in both the Matthew and Lucan version of the Beatitudes, there's a mention before Jesus says, "Blessed are the poor." And as I'm remembering, one says, "Blessed are the poor." That's Luke.
Mm-hmm.
This one has, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," is Matthew. But I digress. The point I want to make is before we even get to that line, "Blessed are the poor," in both cases, the Gospels intentionally note that Jesus is speaking just to the disciples. And here it even said, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up the mountain. After he sat down, his disciples came to him. They have clearly separated that this teaching was not for the thousands below, who are just coming for a word of encouragement and maybe some free fish and bread, or some healing, all of which is a perfectly legitimate reason also to come to Jesus. But it's both gospel writers' way of saying, this is the big leagues. This is graduate school Jesus. This is for the few and not the many. So it's interesting that the church has now, for all these centuries, read these things as part of the Sunday lectionary. And I think we can know with some confidence that every time the Beatitudes get read in church, there are going to be some people that go either one, I don't get that, or two, that's just simply too difficult, or three, that's just flat wrong. Blessed are the poor. I could hear my mom saying, that's wrong. Having had a 2-year-old brother who starved to death in the Depression, she would go, no, there's nothing blessed about that at all. And these would all be legitimate response to this. But I think it's important that Jesus, in Jesus' sensitivity, didn't say this to everybody. And we need to make that note, just in case there's people out there struggling with this.
Yeah? No, that's a good point. Because, yeah, my first impression was, that's not a blessing. Maybe when you're on the other side of some things, then you can look back and see how God blessed you during that time. But when you're going through some of the stuff, I don't think you see it as a blessing.
So when Jesus is telling the disciples this, one of the reasons could be because their call is to minister to other people. And I'm pointing at the lesson, sorry folks. The teachings here are really powerful for someone who is to minister to others, because as Jen said, when you are mourning, it's hard to have the perspective to know that you're blessed. But when you're walking with someone who is mourning, when you're ministering to them, that's a perspective that you need to have to help them through that time. So Chris says that this is, and he's correct, this is part of our lectionary, and it became part of the Bible. Why then, if this is only for the people who are called to ministry, are these included? He asked, hoping that someone has the right answer.
See what people say.
I know that's the problem with this. It's not immediate response.
Well, I'll field Dina's then while people are coming up with the harder answer to your harder question.
Okay.
Dina says, what does the word Beatitudes mean? And people just says it means blessings, but as I'm remembering, there were a couple words in Greek that you could translate in blessings, and the Beatitudes is the ultra blessings. It is the top shelf blessing.
Uber blessing.
There you go.
Anyone?
Which again fits our theme that this is the highest order, the most difficult words of Jesus. This is the uber lesson.
Yeah.
Right. Well, he tells them in the end, all the people will revile and persecute you and utter all evil, because he's telling them what's going to happen.
Right.
But don't give up hope, because your reward is going to be great in heaven. Like, that's the ultimate reward you're going to get. And you got to keep that in perspective when you're going out and blessing these people and doing these things.
And the same way the prophets got that same exact treatment.
Right.
But as the people of Israel would have known then too, a prophet is a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the culture.
Yeah.
It wasn't even 1 person in 100. It was probably 1 in 10,000. So, again, it's clear that he is not speaking to everybody here.
Yeah.
So I repeat then, if Jesus is only speaking to the disciples and maybe even the few prophets that might still be roaming around, why are we reading it? Why do we care about this? What is there for us in this? We're nibbling around the edges here. Rachel says it's the work of the disciples. It's hard work, but it's a life's work nonetheless. Kelly says all of those things are saying, no one said it'd be easy to follow me, but it will be worth it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to answer my own question. It's because, brothers and sisters, when Jesus left, he gave us the Great Commission and therefore made all of us responsible for ministry. Love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them all that they need to know, sharing the gospel with them. That means giving them the grad school Christianity lesson, and that's what this one is. So it's not just for people who wear funny shirts. It's not just for the prophets and the crazy people like John the Baptist living out in the woods and eating locusts and wild honey. It's for all of us.
Right. But, see, the only way we can do this is because he sent the Spirit to help us out.
Uh-huh.
Because this was before that happened to everybody.
That's right.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do all this stuff without the Spirit indwelling on us.
Is this one of those rare
Right?
times where Jen and Rick are doing the cosmic thing and I'm being the realist?
I'm sorry.
This has never happened. Father, I see go ye therefore and proclaim the good news to the nations as a way more doable task than for somebody to be invited to actually rejoice in the fact that they're being persecuted. And in the same way in the Gospel of John, it says, it's the only spot in the Gospels where in response to what Jesus says, when he says, unless you eat my body and drink my blood, you shall have nothing to do with me. And it even says, some of the following him said, this is a hard teaching. And then it goes on to say, at this point, many no longer followed him.
Yeah.
The bar was too high. And again, we have to know that Jesus knew in advance it would have that effect. May I take a crack at your question?
Oh, sure.
The reason, the way I understand the reason we have Beatitudes, or Jesus says things, unless you drink of my blood and eat of my body, is that all of us can benefit by exposing ourselves to excellence, even if we never achieve that excellence. One of my very favorite movies in the world is a documentary about Muhammad Ali called When We Were Kings, which won the Academy Award. And Muhammad Ali is more disciplined, funnier, braver, willing to give up earthly things for heavenly realities than 99.999% of all humanity. It's just a fact. And to see that, I am inspired. I have never once in 61 years thought that I have the discipline or the dedication or the focus, the desire to make it a better world that Muhammad Ali had. He is just a better person than I am and a stronger believer. And I still benefit from him, even though I'm glad that I wasn't born black in the 1940s in Louisville, Kentucky.
Right.
And I could come home with a gold medal from the Olympics and then not sit at a lunch diner in downtown Louisville because of the color of my skin after I just won a gold medal for the United States of America. I could not have handled that, but he did. He was blessed because he was a peacemaker and persecuted for righteousness' sake. So that idea of we get to expose ourselves to excellence, we get to see the Mother Teresa's of the